am a neurodivergent activist poet. Neurotypical poets go fast, quick as lightning, rapid fire. Neurotypical poets are eager to jump into the conversation. Speed means you're smart. Speed is best. They fit a structure like school. They fit the AP classroom. They seem to fit everything. Round pegs and round holes. But I am neurodivergent. I am molasses. Slow and steady, rich and sweet. I need thinking space and breathing time. I am a square peg in a round hole. My name is Helena Donato-Sapp. I was a preemie and weighed only 2.5 pounds at birth. I had multiple brain bleeds. I had heart surgery at 10 days old. I have 4 diagnosed learning disabilities: a visual processing disorder, a working memory disorder, ADHD, and dyscalculia, a math disorder. My non-apparent disabilities have made school difficult for many reasons. Schools are built for neurotypical kids. Too often, school emphasizes memorization. Neurodiverse students are often in conflict with the structure of schooling, especially with assessments, where, of course, memorization is king. This may be your story as well, since there are 7.4 million students with disabilities in America's public schools. And that's why I began my talk with the first part of my original poem, Poetry Spaces and Disability Inclusion. The two don't always vibe. My diagnosed working memory disorder not only puts me in conflict with academic assessments, but it also becomes an obstacle in my growing work as a performing artist and activist poet. A lot of us out here are struggling with these same concerns. Here are some examples of what I mean. In one of the national spaces I live in as a poet, we have a lot of online classes with youth poets from around the nation. I noticed quickly in the way fellow youth poets introduced themselves that I was out of place. Many of them led with how hard their AP classes are. Not everybody can be in an AP class, and many of us would feel so out of place in a poetry community where a narrow definition of intelligence is elevated. In a different poetry community, the 2-hour weekly poetry classes are also fast, and we are slammed with a lot of information. I guess neurotypical spaces believe that more is better, and I find no thinking space or breathing time to process the large amounts of content. I still go, but I always leave feeling diminished instead of inspired. How many of you feel this way because you need some space to process large amounts of information? In many other spaces where performance is required, there's an emphasis on memorizing to make things look professional. As a matter of fact, in nearly all calls for poetry, spoken word, and TED Talks, I noticed that right in the text, they say things like memorization is a must in bold font. As a neurodiverse activist poet, I'm troubled by conventions like memorization that are required in nearly every audition and performance. I'm guessing there are many in this audience who also feel unwelcomed in creative spaces like this. I wonder how many of you thought you had a worthy message for a TED Talk, but didn't do it because of a learning disability. Because you didn't think you were fast enough, because you were afraid of memorization, or because you knew you would be unwelcomed in that space. Maybe you'd love to be in a speech and debate, in spoken word performances, or in mock trial, but the ableist focus on memorize, memorize, memorize blocks you from these opportunities. What I'm confronting here is how institutions idealize and lift up speed, value only specific kinds of intelligence, and in the process, filter out a whole category of people. This rule of memorization benefits neurotypical artists and poets, but it harms those of us with learning disabilities. These common limitations marginalize voices that need to be heard in an inclusive democracy. Please don't discard our voices. Please don't discard our ideas. Please don't discard us. Instead, academic and creative spaces must invite those of us with disabilities. Poetry spaces and creative spaces like this should be for all of us. If we privilege some voices over others, then we miss the wealth of our collective wisdom. If we privilege those who can memorize, then we might be missing voices that bring us empathy, resilience, voices that inspire us and indict us. Inclusivity demands action, but naming is important. Making space for diverse perspectives must be intentional. There is a reason I found such success in the urban word poetry community and in the National Youth Poet Laureate program. It is because the language of accessibility, sensitivity, and inclusion is prominent throughout all of their literature. Here, finally, is a creative community that seeks us out, invites us in, sees us, wants us, and is committed to placing inclusive language front and center. Memorization is not required as the key that grants us access. By the way, one of my favorite TED Talks is Chimamanda Adichie's The Danger of a Single Story. It is about how the danger of a single story can lead people to prejudiced ideas. The single story in our case is that those of us with learning disabilities are not capable, or maybe even not worthy of the stage. Not only is her message powerful, but if you watch the talk, she actually uses a script. Seeing her use a script is what prompted me to be standing in front of you today. I saw myself in her. I'm here to speak directly, heart to heart, to those listening who feel like square pegs in round holes, and invite you into creative spaces. Be bold, because who you are and what you bring to artistic spaces matter deeply to all of us. I see you. We are in this together. We need your voices. An important principle in disability advocacy is that we don't apologize for asking for what we need to be on a level playing field. Whether you need a podium or a script, ask for it with your head held up high. And this is exactly why I always identify as an activist poet. I am an activist first, and I use my poetry as a means and method to speak truth to power. Let me end by finishing with the poem I started. I'm an activist poet. Don't get me wrong, I love all the poetic forms, but that isn't what turns my molasses to running. Inequity, unfairness, bias, discrimination. To write a poem, I use the sting of injustice, which, by the way, happens more times in a day than I can count. I have a heart for justice, and it is in the firm grasp of injustice that an activist poem will pour out of me, slow and steady like molasses. And this is why my poems are about the pain of bullying and fat-shaming and anti-blackness and rage. Poetry begins in pain, but ends in the joy of voice and agency. I write from my most vulnerable place because I want everyone here nodding, yes, 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 me too. Multiply marginalized, neurodiverse, activist poet. I must speak what others will not say. Thank you.